Can one country truly erase $1 trillion overnight? The unfolding rivalry between China and the United States has reached a critical juncture. Just moments ago, stock markets opened to a grim reality, particularly the tech-heavy Nasdaq, which saw significant drops as investors reacted to alarming advancements in Chinese artificial intelligence. On one hand, the US strives to uphold its dominance in global trade, while China aims to assert its influence in production and exports. Tensions have escalated as both nations wield tariffs like weapons, targeting each other's technology sectors and navigating complex diplomatic waters. In a shocking twist, news broke that China has essentially wiped out a staggering $1 trillion from American financial circles, leaving the US economy rattled. Commentators are unequivocally pointing to this move as China's strategic play to undermine American interests. Donald Trump, upon taking office with the ambitious America First agenda, initiated aggressive measures aimed at slashing the trade deficit with China and shielding American producers. However, instead of the anticipated outcomes, China fortified its own markets and solidified new trade agreements throughout the Asia-Pacific. It retaliated against American tariffs, plunging farmers and producers into a tougher market landscape. Yet, the most staggering blow came from China's recent liquidation of U.S. Treasury bonds. The ensuing chaos triggered by algorithmic trading, a method driven by advanced technology, combined with these bond sales, has created a colossal vacuum, leaving a $1 trillion hole in the U.S. economy. At first glance, such a figure may seem like hyperbole, stirring both fear and disbelief. Can the world's largest economy truly be shaken to its core by the moves of a rival nation? Despite its resilience, the specter of economic collapse looms large. The mere notion of such a sudden disappearance of wealth can provoke panic, yet the situation demands a deeper examination. With China pulling back on its purchases of American debt, Treasury bond yields are set to rise, making borrowing more costly for the U.S. As market fears grow, rapid fluctuations could lead to losses nearing $1 trillion in mere days. So, as whispers of collapse circulate, one has to ask, how fragile is the U.S. economy under these pressures? The landscape darkens further when we consider Trump's missteps. Initially promising to rein in China's trade surplus, he underestimated the resilience of its economy. Tariffs were meant to strike hard, yet they've left American ranchers and manufacturers reeling. Like a finely tuned instrument unraveling, the negative impacts ripple through the economy, squeezing consumers with rising prices amidst a shattered global supply chain. This narrative raises an unsettling question: is America's economic fortitude fading? The startling reality is that while the U.S. isn't on the brink of immediate collapse, persistent debt and rising interest rates could set the stage for a recession if trends continue. The grim prospect looms, with $1 trillion in losses gaining headlines. Could the American economic engine be in jeopardy? As the crisis escalates, the outlook becomes murkier. On one side, you've got the unwavering U.S., historically the champion of innovation and strength, fiercely determined to rebound. On the other, China, armed with a growing global trade agenda, is utilizing its economic clout to navigate through turbulence unperturbed. So what does the future hold? Will these two colossal economies manage to broker peace and stabilize trade relations? Or will escalating tensions spiral into a disintegrated world economy divided into two factions? As financial analysts ponder these prospects, the world watches closely, bracing for what could unfold next. In this high-stakes game, as alliances shift and strategies unfold, one thing is clear: both giants must tread carefully or risk mutual destruction in the quest for supremacy. The ongoing rivalry between China and the United States has escalated, shaking global markets. Recent events have revealed an alarming truth: China's sudden sale of U.S. Treasury bonds has opened a $1 trillion chasm in the American economy. But what does this mean for the stability of the U.S. financial system? As this tumult unfolds, investors are consumed with unease, fearing the implications of this massive withdrawal. $1 trillion, just try to comprehend that staggering amount. Visualize it, a sum larger than the annual budget of many countries suddenly vanishing. The clamor of Wall Street echoes with panic. News headlines blare doomsday predictions while countless individuals ask, has the U.S. economy truly slipped into chaos? Amid this uncertainty, the question lingers: how did we reach this precarious point? As China's influence rises, the United States finds itself vulnerable. The sale of U.S. debt may not be a novel development, yet its shocking magnitude creates ripples of fear throughout financial sectors. With the potential for Treasury bond yields to surge, U.S. public debt could spiral, driving costs higher. Investors watch nervously as markets react to every whisper from Beijing. Could a sudden sell-off plunge the stock market into disarray, erasing billions in a heartbeat? Reflecting on this turmoil, Donald Trump's bold assertions to reshape U.S.-China trade relations seem increasingly naive. His administration's tariffs were meant to safeguard American jobs but instead opened Pandora's box. Farmers and producers now face retaliatory measures, with consumers caught in the crossfire. Paying more for everyday goods. The global supply chain has been disrupted, breeding frustration and uncertainty among Americans. Yet amidst the chaos, analysts urge caution, reminding us that while the figures might seem overwhelming, the U.S. economy is resilient. However, the complexity of international finance underscores the stakes. Can the U.S. emerge from this trial unscathed, or are darker days ahead as internal debt rises and global tensions escalate? As we grapple with these looming questions, we must also consider the wider implications. What happens next in this ongoing tug-of-war between two economic giants? How will their fates intertwine in the years to come? The world watches with bated breath. In the previous part, we saw how headlines claiming that $1 trillion suddenly vanished from the U.S. economy could spark panic. Many wonder if the economy is collapsing, and doubts arise over Donald Trump's strategy to close the trade deficit with China. Now, let's dive into how these tariffs backfired, hurting both sides and shaking up global markets. Trump promised to protect American workers by slapping tariffs on Chinese goods, aiming to reduce the trade gap. But instead of weakening China, these harsh measures cornered Beijing, leaving it few options but to strike back. Chinese retaliatory tariffs hammered U.S. farmers and manufacturers. Meanwhile, American shoppers faced rising prices as disrupted supply chains made everyday goods more expensive. Trump's confident we will win rhetoric met the harsh reality of a tangled global economy. Still, there's no denying he thrust the challenge posed by China into the spotlight. China didn't just stand by quietly. It wielded its financial power like a secret weapon, cutting back on buying U.S. Treasury bonds. Suddenly, mentions of a $1 trillion figure echo everywhere, not because money vanished in a puff, but because of China's ability to rattle the U.S. economy. Trump aimed to hit China hard, but instead, China struck a blow back at America. Is the U.S. economy truly in trouble? Despite the chaos, there's a strong belief it will bounce back. The U.S. has weathered storms before. Still, cautious experts remind us that America's public debt is at historic highs. Rising interest rates make it harder to refinance this debt. And if China and other big holders stop buying treasuries, it could widen the financing gap. That's a recipe that might brew a serious recession within a few years. Imagine the weight of $1 trillion shock, not just numbers on a page but the real fear that even the biggest economic powerhouse could stumble when trying to roll over its vast loans. The U.S. remains strong, still anchored by pillars like cutting-edge technology, military strength, consumer demand, and the dollar's role as the world's reserve currency. But being not a country that will give up doesn't mean the road ahead will be smooth. Trouble here means growth slowing down, budget deficits swelling, political tensions rising, and possibly, an economic recession looming on the horizon. China clearly holds the cards to weaken the U.S. by pushing these problems. Trump's bold claim that victory would come easily overlooked this harsh reality. Even if China faces setbacks, it can launch countermeasures that wear down America too. China's massive trade surplus, already more than $1 trillion, predated Trump's presidency. He vowed to eliminate it quickly but never succeeded. Instead, global trade grew more chaotic, especially with recent disruptions from the pandemic. What if this ongoing rivalry isn't just about numbers and tariffs but a high-stakes game where each side's moves send shockwaves through world markets? The U.S. may be strained, but its spirit of innovation and adaptability could still forge new paths. China, meanwhile, is building its economic clout relentlessly, despite American resistance. So, what awaits on this sharpened edge? Will these giants find a way to cool tensions and restore balance? Or will they spiral into a fractured world economy split into competing blocks? For now, uncertainty hangs heavy in the air, thick like a storm waiting to break. And as these two powers clash, the entire globe watches, wondering who will truly bear the cost in this titanic struggle? The ongoing rivalry between China and the United States is one of the most significant economic narratives of our time. Recently, tensions between these two powers have reached a boiling point. Stock markets have opened lower, heavily impacted by concerns surrounding advancements in Chinese technology and innovation. With tech stocks plummeting, such as the Nasdaq, the question arises, is the U.S. economy on the brink of collapse due to China's assertive moves? Summary of previous part: the economic battle between China and the U.S. is intensifying. President Trump's attempts to close the trade deficit have failed, leaving world markets in a complex state. Throughout the pandemic, China has resumed its position as an economic juggernaut, racking up record trade surpluses. Meanwhile, the United States struggles with a growing trade deficit. Analysts now ponder, has Trump's strategy completely backfired? Despite efforts to bring back manufacturing jobs, multinational corporations are still chasing cost efficiency wherever it exists globally. As a result, the U.S. finds itself swirling in uncertainty. Investors have learned the hard way that algorithmic trading, driven by advancements in artificial intelligence, can lead to rapid volatility. The recent downturn in the Nasdaq, for instance, wiped out billions, potentially even reaching that staggering $1 trillion mark. But how can so much value vanish in mere moments? The market is evidently sensitive. Even a small shift initiated by a Chinese startup can trigger significant tremors across American stock exchanges. This scenario is a multi-layered predicament. Bond sales, market manipulation, and trade surpluses all weave together a narrative that advises the U.S., don't take your power for granted. However, while the American economy is indeed strong, it is not invincible. Rising public debt raises alarms among policymakers who worry that China could exploit this vulnerability to inflict severe damage. Feelings of frustration simmer as many Americans believe China's rapid ascent is fueled by unfair practices. The societal tensions have also grown, with each side lamenting the perceived injustices inflicted upon them. On one hand, Americans claim that China is stealing jobs and destabilizing markets. On the other, Chinese citizens express resentment towards U.S. technological restrictions and tariffs they deem unjust. This growing animosity holds the potential to escalate into a more damaging rivalry. Could this economic showdown lead to a new era of hostility that destabilizes global peace? The answers lie hidden within the intricate dynamics of trade policies and international relations. As we navigate this uncertainty, it begs the question, how will these economic giants confront their mounting challenges? In the war of tariffs and technological supremacy, who will ultimately emerge victorious? The mounting tension between China and the United States is sending shockwaves across the globe. Both nations stand locked in a fierce economic struggle that threatens not just trade, but the very fabric of international stability. On one side, America grows anxious, haunted by rising debts, political divides, and inflation's relentless bite. On the other, China, undeterred by tariffs or sanctions, claws forward, building stronger networks and flexing its economic might like never before. Here's the truth few dared to say aloud: Trump's bold trade war gambit dramatically underestimated China's resilience and its intricate web of global alliances. The promise of an instant victory, that tariffs alone would fix the trade imbalance, crumbled under harsh realities. This is no quick fight. This battle is a marathon, filled with crises, setbacks, and fierce political storms. Feel the weight of the moment. Can we imagine economies trembling as $1 trillion seems to vanish overnight? It's not magic or myth. It's a brutal mix: China's strategic withdrawal from U.S. bond markets, devastating algorithm-driven stock sprints wiping billions from tech giants, and retaliatory sanctions slicing through industries. Each blow chips away at American economic confidence, while stoking fears in political halls. So, what lies ahead? The best-case vision is a cliffhanger where these two titans finally shake hands, weaving a new pact that calms the storms and steadies global trade. Yet, lurking in the shadows is a darker fate: escalation into a fractured world economy, divided into rival blocs, each clawing for supremacy. Which path will leaders choose when the pressure mounts? The outcome is far from certain. Despite heavy blows, America remains a fortress of innovation, defense power, and unmatched consumer might. Still, the cracks are showing: record debt, rising borrowing costs, and fragile markets mean resilience alone cannot guarantee safety. Meanwhile, China presses on, turning barriers into opportunities, seizing advantages in turbulence. Picture this: headlines screaming of a $1 trillion loss, a figure so vast it boggles the mind, are less a single calamity and more a layered narrative of power, strategy, and vulnerability. Trump's vision of swift, decisive wins gave way to a complex, grueling struggle where no one truly emerges unscathed. And as these giants clash, the planet watches, breath held, unsure who will eventually falter and who will reshape the world order. What if this fight isn't just about dollars or trade, but the very future of global influence? The stakes have never been higher. The question now is simple: who will blink first in this high-stakes game between two colossal powers?